The massive doors of the Grand Imperial Palace swung open with a soft hiss. Ambassador Elena Volkova took a deep breath and stepped forward, her shoulders back and head held high. This moment would shape the future of humanity. The Zaraxian Palace, stretched impossibly high, its crystal walls catching the light of 3 suns and breaking it into rainbow patterns across the polished floor. Elena had seen the pictures during her briefing, but nothing prepared her for the overwhelming size of everything. The ceiling soared at least 50 meters above her head, and the walkway seemed to stretch for a kilometer ahead. "Human ambassador, follow," chirped the small robotic guide floating beside her. Its metallic body gleamed, and its single eye blinked with impatience. Elena nodded and matched its pace, her simple black diplomatic uniform standing out against the colorful surroundings. All around her, aliens of different shapes and sizes moved with purpose. Most were servants or lower officials, but all paused to stare at the human walking confidently through their halls. "First human in Imperial Palace," the robot noted. "Most unusual." "First of many, I hope," Elena replied with a diplomatic smile. The robot made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Unlikely. Zaraxians do not consider humans equals," Elena said. Nothing to this, simply continuing forward. She had been warned about the Empire's famous arrogance. The Zaraxians had ruled over 3 spiral arms of the galaxy for thousands of years. To them, humans were barely more than clever animals who had stumbled into space travel. After 20 minutes of walking, they reached an enormous set of doors made from some kind of blue-black material that seemed to absorb light. "Negotiation chamber," the robot announced. "Wait to be introduced." The doors parted, revealing a semicircular room with rising tiers of crystalline beings seated in formation. The Zaraxians were beautiful in an alien way. Their bodies resembled humanoid shapes made of living crystal, with light pulsing beneath their transparent skin. Their faces had no mouths, just glowing eyes and crystal formations where a human would have a nose. At the center of the highest tier sat a larger Zaraxian whose body shimmered with more colors than the others. This had to be Supreme Chancellor Krex, leader of the Imperial delegation. "The human representative from planet Earth," announced a tall Zaraxian standing near the doors. Elena walked forward and bowed slightly. "Ambassador Elena Volkova of Earth, I bring greetings and hopes for friendship between our peoples." A strange humming filled the room as the Zaraxians communicated among themselves. Finally, Chancellor Krex's crystal body flashed, and his words were translated by a device near Elena's ear. "Earth's application to join the Galactic Concord has been received," Krex said, his translated voice emotionless. "We will determine if your species qualifies for membership." Elena nodded. "Thank you, Chancellor. Humanity is eager to join the galactic community." "Approach the central platform," Krex ordered. Elena walked to a circular platform in the center of the room. Once she stepped onto it, it rose several meters into the air, allowing all the Zaraxians to see her clearly. "State your credentials," a different Zaraxian called out. "I am Ambassador Elena Volkova, former diplomat to the United Nations, appointed by the Earth Alliance as chief negotiator for—" "What is that on your arm?" interrupted Chancellor Krex, his body flashing with what seemed like disgust. Elena glanced down at her right arm, where the sleeve of her uniform had risen slightly, revealing part of her tattoo. An intricate design of a dark forest with a small hut standing on chicken legs. "This is a personal marking, Chancellor," Elena explained calmly. "A tattoo based on a figure from my cultural heritage." The room filled with the strange humming sound again, louder this time. Elena's translator device struggled to keep up with the overlapping voices, primitive body marking, barbaric customs, deliberate self-mutilation. Chancellor Krex's colors stabilized and he spoke clearly. "Such primitive practices are unexpected from a species seeking to join advanced civilization. Perhaps this is why your kind still dwells on a single world." The room filled with what Elena recognized as laughter, a shimmering pulse that moved through the crystal bodies of the Zaraxians. Elena smiled politely, though her eyes briefly flashed with something cold and ancient. Every culture has its symbols, Chancellor. Some are worn on the skin, others carved into empires. Her response seemed to surprise the Zeraxians, who fell silent. Krex leaned forward slightly. Show us this. Marking. Let us see what humans value enough to permanently damage their bodies for. Elena calmly rolled up her sleeve, revealing the full tattoo. The black forest wrapped around her forearm with the small hut on chicken legs positioned near her wrist. Around it, Cyrillic letters formed words of power from old Russian folklore. This represents Baba Yaga, Elena explained. A figure from my ancestral culture. And what does this figure symbolize? Asked a smaller Zeraxian to Krex's right. Many things, Elena said. Wisdom, protection, justice. She paused. And consequences for those who threaten what she guards. More humming, laughter filled the room. How quaint, Krex said. Well, human ambassador with the primitive markings, let us discuss the terms under which Earth might join the Concord. A large holographic display appeared between Elena and the delegation. The terms scrolled by in multiple languages, and Elena's heart sank as she read them. Earth would be classified as a protectorate, not a full member. Humans would surrender all independent interstellar travel rights. And most disturbing, Earth would provide biological specimens as tribute, including humans for study. These terms are unacceptable, Elena said firmly. The room went completely silent. You misunderstand, Krex said slowly. These are not negotiable items. They are the conditions for Earth's protection within our empire. Elena stood tall on the platform. Earth does not seek protection, Chancellor. We seek partnership. The Zeraxians erupted in more humming laughter. You have no leverage, human, Krex said. Your technology is primitive, your military power is negligible. Be grateful we offer terms at all. Elena's smile never wavered. I request time to consult with my government. One planetary rotation, Krex said dismissively. We expect your acceptance, by tomorrow. As Elena was escorted from the chamber, the laughter of the Zeraxians echoed through the crystal corridors. They had no idea what they had just done. Back in her assigned quarters, Elena rolled up her sleeve and looked at her tattoo in the dim light. She touched it gently and whispered in Russian, They mocked you, grandmother. Just as we expected, the tattoo seemed to ripple slightly under her fingers, though perhaps it was just a trick of the light. Elena tapped a small device hidden behind her ear. Contingency Baba Yaga. Authorization Volkova 973. Begin. Across hundreds of light years on Earth and throughout hidden bases in the solar system, ancient systems began to wake. The Zeraxians had made their first mistake. They had laughed at Baba Yaga. The morning light of three suns streamed through the crystal walls of Elena's quarters. She had slept well despite the uncomfortable negotiations from the previous day. Her confidence came from knowing that Earth was not as helpless as the Zeraxians believed. Elena performed her morning routine with calm precision. She brushed her dark hair, tied it back, and put on a fresh diplomatic uniform. As she rolled up her sleeves to wash her face, she glanced at her tattoo. The black forest and chicken-legged hut seemed darker today, more defined against her skin. Good morning, grandmother, she whispered in Russian, a small smile playing across her lips. A soft chime announced a visitor. Elena rolled down her sleeve and opened the door to find her robotic guide floating impatiently. Human ambassador must attend morning meal with minor ministers, it chirped, then returned to negotiation chamber. Elena nodded and followed the robot through the winding crystal corridors. As they walked, she noticed something strange. The usually busy hallways were oddly quiet, and the few Zeraxians they passed seemed agitated, their crystal bodies flickering with rapid color changes. Is today a special occasion? Elena asked the robot guide. The robot's single eye blinked rapidly. No special occasion. Technical difficulties experienced throughout Palace. Nothing concerning. Elena hid her smile. Technical difficulties? In such an advanced civilization? How unusual. The robot made no reply, but its eye dimmed slightly. When they reached the dining hall, Elena found several mid-level Zeraxian officials waiting. Their bodies pulsed with muted colors, suggesting discomfort or worry. They greeted her with formal nods. "Ambassador Volkova," said one whose crystal form had a bluish tint. "I am Minor Minister Zex. We hope your accommodations were satisfactory." "Very comfortable, thank you," Elena replied, taking a seat at the table. Food was served, strange gelatinous cubes for the Zaraxians and something approximating Earth food for Elena. As they ate, Elena noticed the Zaraxians kept looking at each other, their bodies flickering in what seemed like private communication. "Is something wrong?" Elena asked innocently. Minister Zex's colors stabilized. Nothing of concern to Earth representatives, minor system errors throughout the palace. "What kind of errors?" Elena pressed, taking a bite of what tasted vaguely like scrambled eggs. Another Zeraxian, whose form was tinged with green, spoke up. "Security systems malfunctioning, temperature regulation unstable, communication networks experiencing echoes." "Echoes?" Elena asked. "Irrelevant," Zex interrupted. "Ambassador, we hope you have reconsidered the generous terms offered yesterday." Elena set down her utensil. "As I mentioned, the terms are unacceptable. Earth will not join the Galactic Concord as a servant species." The Zeraxians' colors darkened. "Then perhaps Earth should not join at all," Zex said coldly. "That would be unfortunate," Elena replied. "For everyone." Suddenly, all the lights in the dining hall went out. The room plunged into darkness, except for the faint glow coming from the Zeraxians' bodies. A moment later, the lights returned, but they flickered ominously. One of the Zeraxians made a sound like breaking glass, a sign of distress. "It happened again!" Minister Zex flashed angrily. "Control yourself!" Elena looked around with innocent curiosity. "Does this happen often in the Imperial Palace?" "Never," Zex admitted reluctantly. "Until today." The rest of the meal passed in uncomfortable silence. When it was over, Elena was escorted to the negotiation chamber where Chancellor Krex and the full Imperial delegation waited. Their crystalline forms seemed less brilliant today, their colors muted with what Elena recognized as stress. "Ambassador Volkova," Krex began without preamble. "Have you consulted with your government?" Elena took her place on the central platform. "Yes, Chancellor. Earth remains firm in its position. We will not accept protectorate status." Murmurs rippled. Through the delegation, Krex's body flashed with bright colors that the translator didn't catch. "You test our patience," he said finally. "The Empire does not negotiate with primitive species. We dictate terms." Elena smiled calmly. "In Earth's history, Chancellor, weaker nations often prevailed against stronger ones when defending their homes. There is an old saying where I come from, 'Fear the forest at night, for it may walk to greet you by morning.'" As Elena spoke these words, the lights in the chamber dimmed briefly. Several Zeraxians flinched. "Are you threatening the Empire?" Krex demanded, his form pulsing with angry red light. "Not at all," Elena said. "I'm simply sharing cultural wisdom. Communication between different species can be so unpredictable. Wouldn't you agree?" Before Krex could answer, a side door burst open. A smaller Zeraxian rushed in, her crystal form almost white with distress. She approached Krex and began a rapid humming communication. The other delegates listened, their colors changing to match her distress. Elena waited patiently. Finally, Krex turned back to her. "We will adjourn for today," he announced. "Resume tomorrow, same time." Elena bowed slightly. "As you wish, Chancellor." As she was escorted out, Elena overheard fragments of worried conversation. Surveillance. Systems showing figures where none exist. Temperature drops in personal quarters. Nightmares reported by 17 officials. Back in her quarters, Elena sat cross-legged on the floor. She closed her eyes and touched her tattoo, which felt warm under her fingers. "They're beginning to notice, Grandmother," she whispered. Meanwhile, in another part of the palace, Sub-Commander Vex, the delegation's intelligence officer, was working frantically at a crystal terminal. The screen displayed information about Earth's history and mythology. "Computer, search for Baba Yaga," she commanded. The screen filled with images: a forest hut on chicken legs, an old woman with supernatural powers, stories of justice and vengeance. Cross-reference with Earth military structures, Vex ordered. New information appeared: classified reports from species who had encountered humanity before, strange disappearances of ships near Earth's system, theories about human defensive capabilities. Vex's crystal body paled. She needed to inform Chancellor Krex immediately. As she rushed from her office, the lights went out completely. In the pitch darkness, Vex thought she saw something impossible: a hunched shadow moving where no one stood, the outline of what looked like a small hut, walking on impossible legs. When the lights returned seconds later, nothing was there. That evening, Chancellor Krex called an emergency meeting of the Imperial High Command. They gathered in a secure room, their crystal forms dim with concern. "Something is happening in the palace," Krex admitted. "System failures. Unexplained phenomena." Just then the door opened and Sub-Commander Vex entered. Her usually blue crystal form had turned almost white. "Chancellor," she said urgently, "I found something about the human's tattoo." She projected images from her research onto the wall. "It's a symbol from Russian mythology, Baba Yaga, a witch of immense power who punishes those who threaten what she protects." The Zeraxians laughed nervously. "Superstition," Krex declared. "Myths that frightened primitive humans." "Then explain the malfunctions," Vex challenged. "Explain the sightings of impossible shadows. Explain why 17 officials had the same nightmare last night, of being lost in a forest they couldn't escape." Silence fell over the room. At that moment, every screen in the palace, in every room, on every terminal, suddenly displayed the same message in ancient Zeraxian script, not used for millennia. 3 warnings. 2 remaining. Meanwhile, Elena sat in her quarters, eyes closed in meditation. Around her, shadows bent unnaturally, and whispers in dozens of dead languages filled the air. The small communication device in her ear quietly reported, "Contingency. Baba Yaga initiated. Assets in position." Elena smiled. Tomorrow would be interesting. Elena woke early on the 4th day, feeling refreshed despite the tension building throughout the palace. Today was an important day in her carefully planned strategy. Earth had no intention of becoming a servant world to the Zeraxian Empire, and soon the crystal beings would understand exactly why. As she dressed, she noticed her tattoo seemed to move slightly when she wasn't looking directly at it. A good sign, she thought with a smile. Her robot guide arrived and led her to the negotiation chamber. The hallways were now filled with Imperial security forces, tall Zeraxians with armor-like growths covering their crystal bodies. They watched Elena pass with glowing eyes that flickered with suspicion. "Increased security today," Elena commented casually to her guide. The robot's eye dimmed. "Precautionary measures, nothing concerning." When Elena entered the chamber, she immediately sensed something different. Chancellor Krex sat in his usual position, but beside him stood an unexpected figure. A tall, muscular alien with brownish-red skin, horns curving from its forehead, and large, frightened eyes. A Taurian. Elena recognized the species immediately. Humans had encountered Taurian ships at the edge of Earth's solar system 2 years ago. "Ambassador Volkova," Krex announced, his crystalline form glittering with what Elena interpreted as smug confidence. "We have a special guest today. This is Representative Mox of the Taurian Collective, a valued member species of our empire." Elena bowed politely to the Taurian, who nervously returned the gesture. His large hands trembled slightly. "Welcome, Representative Mox," Elena said warmly. "I didn't expect to see a Taurian here." "The representative has information relevant to these negotiations," Krex continued. "Information about humanity's true nature." Mox stepped forward, clearly uncomfortable. His voice was deep and rumbling when he spoke. 2 Earth years ago, my people sent a scientific vessel to your solar system. It was attacked without provocation by human military ships. 3 of our researchers were killed. The chamber filled with shocked humming from the Zeraxian delegation. Chancellor, Krex's colors pulsed triumphantly. This confirms what we suspected, Ambassador. Your species is violent and unpredictable. The restrictions in our terms are not just for our benefit. They're for the protection of all civilized species. Elena remained calm, her expression unchanged. Representative Mox, was your vessel perhaps one of 3 ships that entered our system near the planet Jupiter? The Taurian's eyes widened. Yes, but how did you... And was this scientific vessel designed to collect biological samples? Elena continued. Specifically human samples. Mox shifted uncomfortably, looking to Krex for guidance. Elena didn't wait for his response. That wasn't a scientific vessel, Chancellor. It was a biosampling ship collecting human specimens without consent. You should ask what happened to the other 2 ships in that fleet. The Taurian's face paled and he took a step back. The Zeraxians erupted in confused communication, their bodies flashing rapidly. Krex's form darkened. These accusations are baseless, Representative Mox Teller, but the Taurian was now visibly trembling. I was not personally on the mission, he stammered. I was merely informed that it was a scientific... The truth, Elena interrupted gently, is that your empire ordered the Taurians to collect human subjects for experimentation. The ships were warned 3 times to leave our system. 2 complied. The 3rd did not. The chamber fell silent. How could you possibly know this? Krex demanded, his crystal form now pulsing with angry red light. Elena smiled slightly. Perhaps we're not as primitive as you believe, Chancellor. The negotiations that followed were tense and unproductive. The Zeraxians refused to change their terms and Elena refused to accept them. By midday, Chancellor Krex called for a recess, clearly frustrated. As Elena was escorted back to her quarters for the break, she noticed staff rushing through the corridors, crystal faces showing clear signs of panic. In her room, Elena checked. The time. Right on schedule. At exactly 13 minutes past the hour, every communication system throughout the palace complex failed simultaneously. Screens went dark. Communication devices fell silent. The constant background hum of technology ceased. Elena sat calmly on her bed, counting silently. When she reached 13 minutes exactly, everything returned to normal, except for one thing. Every screen in the palace now displayed the same message in ancient Zeraxian script. 3 warnings, 2 remaining. The palace erupted in chaos. Imperial security forces conducted frantic searches of every room, corridor, and system. They found nothing. No evidence of tampering, no unauthorized access, no explanation for how ancient script not used for millennia had appeared simultaneously throughout the complex. When negotiations resumed that afternoon, many seats in the delegation were empty. Krex himself seemed diminished, his crystal form duller, the pulses of light within him slower and weaker. Ambassador, he said, his translated voice notably less confident. These disruptions. Is Earth responsible? Elena tilted her head. What disruptions, Chancellor? I'm merely here to negotiate Earth's membership in the Galactic Concord. That evening, a formal banquet was scheduled, a standard diplomatic practice. Elena arrived wearing her uniform, but with one addition, a small wooden box, intricately carved with forest scenes. When she was seated across from Chancellor Krex, Elena placed the box on the table between them. A gift, Chancellor, she explained. A diplomatic tradition from Earth. We offer a visitor a piece of our home. Krex stared at the box suspiciously. What does it contain? Elena opened it, revealing a small amount of dark, rich soil. Earth, she said simply. Actual soil from my homeland in Russia. The Zeraxians murmured among themselves, clearly finding the gift primitive and strange, but protocol demanded Krex accept it. How quaint, he said, taking the box reluctantly. I shall place it in my office. The banquet proceeded without incident, but Elena noticed the Zeraxians watching her with new caution. They no longer laughed at her tattoo, or made dismissive comments about human customs. That night, as Elena meditated in her quarters, her communication device chimed softly. "Operation Mushroom complete," a voice reported. "All palace gardens affected. Circle established around your location." Elena smiled. "Excellent. Proceed with the next phase." Meanwhile, palace gardeners were making a horrifying discovery. Every plant in the imperial gardens, rare specimens from thousands of worlds, some cultivated for centuries, had withered and died in a matter of hours. In their place, strange mushrooms had sprouted, forming perfect circles throughout the grounds. Most disturbing of all, tests showed that all the soil in the gardens had somehow been replaced with earth soil, identical to the sample in the wooden box that now sat empty on Krex's desk. When Chancellor Krex demanded an explanation, Elena merely shrugged. "How interesting," she remarked. "In our folklore, Baba Yaga's forest follows her wherever she travels. That night, every Xeraxian in the palace dreamed of walking through a dark forest, forever unable to find their way out, while a small hut on chicken legs watched from the shadows." The second warning had been delivered. The morning of the 5th day brought a heavy silence to the imperial palace. Xeraxians moved through the corridors with quick, nervous steps. Guards stood at every corner, their crystal bodies pulsing with alert colors. The mockery and confidence of the first day were completely gone. Elena waited in her quarters, calmly drinking tea she had brought from Earth. Her communication device had reported during the night that all operations were proceeding perfectly. Now it was time for the final revelation, the truth about humanity that would change the Xeraxian Empire forever. A sharp knock interrupted her thoughts. Instead of the usual robot guide, Elena opened the door to find Chancellor Krex himself, flanked by 4 armed guards. His crystalline form had lost much of its luster, and the colors pulsing beneath his transparent skin were dim and irregular. "Ambassador Volkova," he said without greeting. "You will come with me. Now." Elena set down her tea calmly. "Of course, Chancellor. Is something wrong?" Krex did not answer. He turned and walked rapidly down the corridor, clearly expecting Elena to follow. The guards positioned themselves around her as they walked. Instead of going to the negotiation chamber, they took a different route, eventually arriving at a small, plain room with no windows. A single table with 2 chairs stood in the center. This was clearly an interrogation room. "Sit," Krex ordered, pointing to one of the chairs. Elena complied, maintaining her calm smile. Krex dismissed the guards with a flash of color and took the seat opposite her. "What are you doing?" he hissed once they were alone. His translated voice carried a tone Elena had not heard before. "Fear." "I'm negotiating Earth's entry into the Galactic Concord," Elena replied simply. Krex's form flashed with angry colors. "These tricks are acts of war." "No tricks, Chancellor. Just demonstrations of cultural exchange. You wanted to know about humanity. We're showing you. The garden soil, the dreams, the ancient script on our systems, the surveillance shadows." Krex leaned forward. "How is Earth doing this?" Elena's smile never wavered. "You've spent the past 1,000 years conquering species across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Did you really think you could observe Earth without us observing you in return?" Before Krex could respond, the door opened and Sub-Commander Vex entered. Her usually blue crystal form was now almost gray with exhaustion. She carried a transparent tablet filled with data. "Chancellor, I must speak with you immediately," she said, her colors flashing urgently. Krex gestured impatiently. "Speak," Vex glanced at Elena nervously before continuing. "I've been analyzing intercepted communications from Earth's system over the past 50 years. I've found something disturbing." She set the tablet on the table, projecting a holographic display between them. It showed a map of the galaxy with red dots marking specific locations. "These are the locations where ships have disappeared near Earth's outer system over the past 5 decades, Vex explained. 17 different species have lost vessels there. Krex studied the display. Primitive defense systems, perhaps. Nothing concerning. Chancellor, look at the list of species. Vex highlighted the names. Krex's colors dimmed as he read. These are all members of the Galactic Concord, Vex finished. Species that hold positions similar to what Earth is requesting. Elena watched, them calmly saying nothing. They've been studying us, Vex continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. Learning our weaknesses while we thought we were observing them. Krex turned to Elena, his crystal body now pulsing with rapid, chaotic colors. Explain this. Elena folded her hands on the table. Earth has been aware of the galactic community for over a century, Chancellor. We detected your observation posts in our outer system long ago. Rather than announcing ourselves immediately, we decided to learn more about our neighbors first. Impossible, Krex said. Your technology is primitive. Your ships can barely reach your own moon. Elena laughed softly. The ships you've seen, Chancellor, the technology we've allowed you to detect. Vex's colors paled further as she projected a new image, a detailed analysis of Elena's tattoo and the words Baba Yaga in various Earth languages. Chancellor, I've discovered the meaning of Baba Yaga in modern human military context, she said urgently. It's not just a folklore reference. It's a code name for Earth's shadow defense network. The projection changed to show military analyses, intercepted communications, and theoretical models of Earth's true capabilities. The ambassador isn't just a diplomat, Vex continued. She's the human equivalent of a grand marshal, commanding a fleet that no Imperial sensor has ever detected. The room fell silent as Krex absorbed this information. His crystalline form had dimmed to an almost gray transparency, the pulses of light within barely visible. If this is true, he said finally, turning to Elena, why negotiate at all? Why not simply force your entry into the Concord? Elena leaned forward slightly. Because humanity prefers peace to war, Chancellor. We have no interest in conquest or domination. We simply refuse to be dominated. She rolled up her sleeve, fully revealing her tattoo for the first time since their initial meeting. The black forest and chicken-legged hut seemed to shift slightly on her skin, as if alive. You still don't understand what Baba Yaga truly represents, Elena said. In our oldest stories, she isn't evil. She's a guardian of boundaries. She punishes those who cross them without respect, but rewards those who approach with proper courtesy. Elena stood up, and surprisingly, Krex did not order her to sit again. Earth will join the Galactic Concord as an equal member, with full autonomy and sovereignty, she stated firmly. We offer a non-aggression pact and peaceful trade. These are our terms. Krex's colors flashed with indignation. You dare dictate terms to the Empire? Elena's expression hardened slightly, the first change in her diplomatic demeanor since her arrival. Consider carefully, Chancellor, she said, her tattoo seeming to writhe beneath her skin. The Witch of the Woods offers peace before war. If on cue, alarms began blaring throughout the palace. A guard burst into the room, his crystal form pulsing with panic. Chancellor, all communication with our defense fleet has been lost, and he hesitated as if afraid to continue. Speak, Krex demanded. Every Zeraxian in the palace is reporting the same dream from last night, a forest they cannot escape, and a house that follows them on chicken legs. Krex turned slowly to face Elena, a new understanding dawning in his glowing eyes. Who are you, really? He whispered. Elena smiled. Just a representative of Earth, Chancellor. Here to introduce ourselves properly to the galaxy. That evening, as Elena returned to her quarters, she received a message from Earth. The Supreme Council had reviewed the situation and approved the next phase of the operation. Tomorrow, the final demonstration would begin. Elena touched her tattoo gently, whispering, One warning remains, Grandmother. Let's make it count. Dawn broke over the Imperial Palace, the light of 3 suns casting long shadows across the once beautiful gardens, now filled with mysterious mushroom circles. The palace staff moved with quiet fear, many whispering about dreams of endless forests and strange walking huts that had haunted their sleep. Elena dressed with careful precision, choosing her formal diplomatic uniform with its clean lines and subtle Earth insignia. Today was the day of confrontation, when the Zeraxian Empire would finally understand the true nature of humanity. As she fastened the last button, she studied her tattoo in the mirror. The black forest seemed darker, more vibrant, and the small, hut-on chicken legs appeared to be facing a different direction than yesterday. She smiled at the image. "Today we finish what we started, grandmother," she whispered in Russian. A sharp knock announced her escort, not the usual robot guide, but 6 elite Imperial guards with weapons drawn. Their crystal bodies pulsed with tense, ready colors. "Ambassador Volkova," the lead guard said stiffly. "Chancellor Krex awaits." Elena nodded and followed them through corridors now filled with armed soldiers. The palace had transformed into a fortress overnight, with security checkpoints at every junction and scanning devices humming as she passed. When they reached the negotiation chamber, Elena immediately noticed the change. The semicircular arrangement had been replaced by a straight line of officials behind a protective barrier. Chancellor Krex stood in the center, flanked by military commanders whose crystal forms bore battle scars and combat enhancements. "Ambassador Volkova," Krex began, without ceremony, his voice cold through the translator. "The terms we presented for Earth's admission to the Galactic Concord remain unchanged. You will accept them today, or we will consider your rejection an act of hostility." Elena took her position at the center of the room, standing tall despite being surrounded by guards. "Chancellor, I had hoped for more productive discussions," she said calmly. Krex's form flashed with angry colors. "Enough games. Your psychological warfare ends now. The Empire has stood for 10,000 years. We will not be intimidated by primitive tricks and superstitions." His colors stabilized as he delivered his threat. "The Imperial Armada stands ready. If these disruptions continue, if you reject our generous terms, we will target Earth directly. Your cities will burn. Your oceans will boil. Your species will serve as an example to any who defy the Empire." The chamber fell silent, waiting for Elena's response. Slowly, deliberately, Elena rolled up her sleeve, fully revealing her tattoo. For the first time, she touched it directly while in the presence of the Zeraxians. "You still don't understand what Baba Yaga truly represents," she said. "She's not a weapon or a trick. She's a promise." With those words, she tapped her communication device once. Throughout the Imperial Palace, alarms suddenly blared. Emergency lights flashed. Every screen displayed the same message in modern Zeraxian script. "Final warning delivered. Baba Yaga comes." In space, around the Zeraxian homeworld, the impossible happened. Where empty space had existed moments before, thousands of ships suddenly appeared in perfect formation. Ships of strange design, with Earth markings that no Imperial sensor had detected until now. But more terrifying was what happened inside the palace itself. Throughout the complex, in every service area, maintenance shaft and security post, humans emerged from hiding. Having infiltrated the palace days ago, their true identities concealed by sophisticated biological camouflage that made them appear as various servant species. In the negotiation chamber itself, 4 of Elena's 6 guards suddenly straightened and turned their weapons on the Zeraxian delegation. Their disguises flickered and fell away, revealing human Special Forces operatives in advanced stealth gear. "What is this?" Krex gasped, his crystal form paling to near transparency. Elena smiled. "This, Chancellor, is humanity introducing itself properly." Behind her, the doors to the chamber opened. A team of humans in black uniforms entered, quickly securing the room with practiced efficiency. "We could have taken this palace on the first day," Elena explained calmly as her security team, actually disguised Special Forces, positioned themselves around the chamber. "But that's not why we came." "How?" one of the military commanders demanded. "Our sensors. Our defenses. For a century, your empire has watched Earth, believing we were unaware," Elena said. "But we have been watching you for much longer, learning, adapting, Preparing. She gestured toward the screens showing the fleet surrounding the planet. Those ships have been in position for 3 days. Your sensors never detected them because you've never encountered our stealth technology. Krex's form had dimmed to a dull gray, the light within him barely pulsing. For the first time, he asked the right question. What do you want? Elena's expression softened slightly. What Baba Yaga has always wanted, to be left alone in her forest unless shown proper respect. Humanity doesn't want conquest. We want recognition as equals, with our sovereignty intact. She walked slowly toward the Zaraxian delegation, stopping just before the protective barrier. You believed humans were primitive because that's what we wanted you to see. Elena continued, a carefully constructed facade while we studied the Galactic conquered and prepared to join it on our terms. Your empire has subjugated dozens of species through fear, she said, her voice growing firmer. We prefer to be feared only by those who threaten us. Krex stared at her for a long moment, his crystal form gradually regaining some of its color as he considered her words. You could have destroyed us, he said finally. Why negotiate at all? Elena's tattoo seemed to shift on her arm as she answered, because that's not who we are. Humanity has fought itself for thousands of years. We've nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. We've learned the cost of war and the value of peace. She gestured to one of her officers who stepped forward with a data tablet. These are our terms. Equal membership in the Galactic conquered, full sovereignty over our system, non-aggression pacts with all member species, fair trade agreements. Krex took the tablet reluctantly. And if we refuse? Elena's expression didn't change, but her tattoo darkened visibly on her arm. Then we leave, Chancellor. But we will not forget the threat you made against our homeworld. The implication hung in the air, clear and chilling. For several minutes, Krex consulted with his advisors in hushed, humming tones. Elena waited patiently, standing strong and calm amid the tension. Finally, Krex turned back to her. Your demonstration has been persuasive, Ambassador Volkova. The Empire will consider your terms. Consideration is not acceptance, Elena pointed out. Krex's colors flashed briefly with the remnants of pride. The Zaraxian Empire does not surrender easily, Ambassador. We will need time to adjust our perspective on humanity's place in the galaxy. Elena nodded. 3 days, Chancellor. Our fleet will remain in position until then. As she turned to leave the chamber, Krex called after her. Ambassador? This Baba Yaga. Was it all just psychological warfare? A military code name? Elena paused at the doorway and smiled mysteriously. Some questions are better left unanswered, Chancellor. Let's just say that in human history, underestimating what waits in the dark forest has always been a dangerous mistake. That night, as humans throughout the palace revealed themselves and took strategic positions, the Zaraxian Empire began urgent discussions about a new approach to Earth. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Empire was considering treating a newly discovered species as an equal. The Witch of the Woods had made her point. 3 days passed in tense but peaceful negotiation. The Imperial Palace had transformed yet again. Now a careful balance of power existed, with Zaraxian guards and revealed human operatives patrolling side by side. In orbit, the Earth fleet remained in formation, their stealth systems occasionally flickering to remind the Empire of their presence. On the morning of the final day, Elena stood before a mirror in her quarters, preparing for the signing ceremony. She wore a formal Earth diplomatic uniform, adorned with subtle symbols of human history. Her dark hair was pulled back neatly, revealing her face fully, no longer the always smiling mask she had worn during the first days. Her tattoo seemed especially vivid today. The black forest, the chicken-legged hut, the Cyrillic letters all appeared to pulse with life on her skin. We did it, grandmother, she whispered in Russian. They understand now. A chime announced her escort, a mixed group of human security officers and Zaraxian guards, They led her through corridors now filled with representatives from various species of the Galactic Concord, all gathered to witness the historic agreement. The great hall of the palace had been prepared for the ceremony. Crystal chandeliers floated near the ceiling, casting rainbow patterns across the gathered crowd. At the center stood a large round table where Chancellor Krex waited with his advisors. Elena took her place opposite Krex. Between them lay the treaty, a thick document written in multiple languages including Earth Standard and Zeraxian script. Ambassador Volkova. Krex greeted her, his crystal form now restored to its full brilliance, though perhaps with a new humility in its pulses. The Empire has considered Earth's terms. We have made our decision. The hall fell silent as Krex picked up the document. The Zeraxian Empire hereby recognizes Earth as a sovereign and equal member of the Galactic Concord, with all rights and privileges therein. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Many species had never seen the Empire treat a newcomer as an equal. Furthermore, Krex continued, the Empire will reassess its relationships with all member species, with the goal of establishing more equitable partnerships throughout the galaxy. This announcement caused even greater stir. Several representatives of subjugated species exchanged hopeful glances. Krex extended the document toward Elena. Is this acceptable to Earth? Elena reviewed the treaty carefully. It contained everything humanity had asked for: full sovereignty, equal membership, non-aggression guarantees. It is acceptable, she said, taking the ceremonial pen offered. To her, both leaders signed the treaty simultaneously. As they did, applause broke out across the hall, led by the representatives of formerly subjugated species who saw in this moment hope for their own futures. With the formalities completed, attendants brought forward ceremonial drinks to seal the agreement. As they sipped the sparkling blue liquid, Krex studied Elena with new curiosity. May I ask you something, Ambassador? He said, his voice quieter than before. Of course, Chancellor. Krex gestured toward her arm. Is it true? Are you actually this Baba Yaga? Elena laughed genuinely for the first time since her arrival. No, Chancellor. No single human is Baba Yaga. We all are. Seeing his confusion, she continued. Throughout human history, different cultures created figures like Baba Yaga, embodiments of nature's power, of consequence for those who violated natural laws or threatened the innocent. She rolled up her sleeve, displaying her tattoo. These weren't just stories, but ways of understanding our place in the universe. Reminders that actions have consequences, that boundaries must be respected. Krex's colors shifted thoughtfully. Your species is strange, Ambassador. Your technology rivals or exceeds ours in many ways, yet you maintain these primitive symbols. That's because we know something your empire forgot, Elena replied. Technology without wisdom is dangerous. Power without restraint leads to destruction. She looked around at the gathered representatives. Your empire built itself on technological supremacy. Humanity built itself on survival against overwhelming odds. We've faced extinction dozens of times, from nature, from ourselves. Each time we adapted. Another Zeraxian official joined them, Sub-Commander Vex, whose research had helped the Empire understand humanity's true nature. How did Earth develop such advanced technology without our detection? Vex asked. Our observation posts have monitored your planet for decades. Elena smiled. We detected your observation posts a century ago. Everything you saw was what we wanted you to see. The primitive spacecraft, the limited communications, the political divisions, all carefully maintained to present the image of a developing world not yet ready for galactic politics. But why? Krex asked. Why hide your true capabilities? Because we needed to understand what kind of neighbors we had, Elena explained. Whether the Galactic Concord would be a community we wanted to join, or a threat we needed to prepare against. She gestured toward the signed treaty. We preferred friendship, but we prepared for the alternative. As the celebration continued, around them, Elena removed a small package from her pocket and presented it to Chancellor Krex. "A final gift from Earth," she said. Krex opened it cautiously. Inside was a complete historical archive of human conflicts and resolutions, from ancient tribal wars to global conflicts to the final unification. "Study this," Elena told him. "You'll understand why we value our independence so fiercely, and why threatening a species that clawed its way up from caves to spacecraft in a cosmic eye blink might be unwise." In the days that followed, the Zeraxian Empire began a cautious but genuine diplomatic relationship with Earth. The human fleet remained in orbit but powered down their weapon systems. Human operatives throughout the palace revealed themselves fully and began training programs with Imperial security forces, sharing knowledge and building trust. Most significantly, multiple subjugated species were granted new freedoms under revised conquered laws. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, not through conquest but through understanding. A month later, as Elena prepared to return to Earth, Chancellor Krex presented her with a parting gift, a small crystal sculpture showing a Zeraxian tower beside a forest with a tiny hut on chicken legs. "A reminder," he said, "that different cultures can stand side by side in respect." Elena accepted the gift with a bow. "Chancellor, I think this is the beginning of a valuable friendship." As her ship departed the Zeraxian homeworld, a new saying began spreading among spacefaring civilizations. "Treat each new world with respect, for you never know which ones keep a witch in their woods." Back on Earth, Elena received a new tattoo beside her Baba Yaga, this one showing a chicken-legged hut and a crystalline tower standing side by side. A symbol not of conflict but of understanding finally achieved. In the great forest of the galaxy, many strange creatures dwelled. But none were more surprising or more formidable when threatened than the humans of Earth.